Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you now from my fold-out table, it's The Early Show. The really early show. It's 3 a.m. And as always, The Early Show is brought to you by not melatonin. Melatonin. It doesn't do anything. That spilled everywhere. It's 3 a.m. You may be thinking nothing good happens at 3 a.m. Why even be awake? I've asked myself the same question countless times. And, as you can imagine, I've tried everything. Sometimes I slam my head against a wall to see if that'll knock me out, but it doesn't work, and I just get a really big bruise, which is not great for views. This is tea. It is decaffeinated, of course, and it is chamomile. It is supposed to be soothing and put you to sleep. But here we are at 3 a.m., so now let's get to some news. The word of the day is hortatory. Hortatory, urging to some course of conduct or action, exhorting, encouraging, a hortatory speech. I'll use it in a sentence. He admired the man's passion and fighting spirit, his wit, his hortatory style, his good looks, and fine speech. And that's your word of the day. And now for some personal updates. Since the beginning of quarantine, I have completed 2,675 levels of Candy Crush and 87 episodes of Criminal Minds, if you count the 3 I intend to watch tonight. I have watched all of Avatar: The Last Airbender, 2 Spike Jonze movies, 3 Spike Lee movies, and rewatched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which features a Spike. Now let's get to our movie review. This weekend I had the pleasure of watching Netflix's Work It. It was a spellbinding adventures into the mishaps and adventures of Sabrina Carpenter as she attempts to turn her life around from being a studious studier who only has dreams to go to Duke University to becoming a dancer. What I found most interesting about this movie was the shameless plugs that Netflix left for itself, including in Sabrina Carpenter's prayer, where she prays to Beyonce's Netflix special.
Beyonce, Queen Bey, I pray that you make my feet swift tomorrow,
and that you make my moves have swagger.
In the name of the Single Ladies video and the Lemonade short film, I pray.
Now, this is to be expected. It's big money at Netflix, you know? You gotta go for the gold. And of course, we can't forget social media's pride and joy, Liza Koshy, also featured in this movie, though not as much as I would have liked. And frankly, most of her personality was built off of her attraction to a boy who worked in a mattress store. I believe we are to assume that they had sex in said mattress store. But my biggest complaint about this movie by far would have to be the depiction of high school students, which was completely unrealistic. Sabrina Carpenter, the lead, is 21 years old, as am I. I like to think I don't look like I could be back in high school. Certainly Liza Koshy, 25 years old, doesn't look like she could be in high school, and none of the male leads looked like they could be in high school. My favorite character was the so-called goth queen, Raven, naturally, whose whole personality was just kind of being goth. Overall, I'd give this movie a solid 7.5 out of 10. In these times, these unprecedented times, it was light and uplifting. It was like watching Mission Impossible. You don't really have to care about anything, but it's nice to keep yourself occupied. The featured product of today's episode is dinosaur eggs. I don't have any on me right now, or with me, but man do I miss them. Those sweet, delicious clumps of sugar plopped in your oatmeal every morning. I wish they would make a comeback and turn the eggs into other things, maybe birds, or many things come out of eggs. I think we should expand the dinosaur eggs to include human eggs. That is, the unfertilized ones in the mother's womb. I just think it would be funny, and they could have strawberry syrup. They could call them abortionos, or zygote flakes, or oopsie doozies. Though I think pro-lifers might have a field day if we came out with that. And finally, we'd like to end this episode of The Very Early Show with a real genuine piece of advice for those facing chronic insomnia and unable to get themselves to catch those Z's. I personally have been listening to a great podcast. It's called Sleep With Me. It is narrated by a man named Scooter, or Scoots, and his voice is lulling and frankly a little boring, and he knows it. He's taken advantage of this and really believes that you deserve a good night's sleep. This is not sponsored, but it really has been one of the only things that helps me get to sleep at night. He just makes you feel like someone is next to you telling you a story, and it's never anything that you have to focus on too hard. So once again, that podcast is called Sleep With Me. Well, signing off from the very early show, my name's Tess, and I hope you fall asleep and are watching this at a reasonable time. Good night, or good morning.